Good morning, everyone. We are just past 12 o'clock, so I'm going to make a start. Welcome to the session today. Hope everybody is well. Just to let you know that the session today is being recorded, so I hope that's okay with everyone. Session today is on qualifications reform, as you know, and as you will also know, I'm sure there's been a lot happening in qualifications reform in the post-16 arena over the past few months. We run these webinars on a fairly regular basis to update people as and when we have the information. And today that really is the key word, is as we have that information, because you may know about the post-16 education and white skill post-education and skills white paper that came out at the end of last year in October. And then there's a consultation that's gone out on the post-16 reforms, and that concluded in January. So we probably won't know the detail of the government plans or the full detail until probably at least springtime. So today, the aim is to provide you with as much up-to-date information as we possibly can, a little bit of history and context of the reforms, and to talk about what the government proposals are, and of course, to give you time for questions as well. So please do put your questions in the chat, and we'll answer some of these at the end, and we will follow up with a full set of Q&A after the session as well. So just some introductions. I'm Kim Newman. I am the Technical Education Programme Manager at the CDI. So we do lots of awareness raising of technical education. And we also have Angela Savage today, who's a policy official at the Department for Education. If you've joined us on these webinars before, you will probably have seen Angela because she's helped us out with a few of these webinars, and Ange is going to be leading the session today. You might also have questions around T-levels, apprenticeships, higher technical qualifications, because they are all part of qualifications reform and of the tech educational landscape in total. Just to let you know, we do have a whole back catalogue of webinars and Q&A sets on all of those areas. So if you have got particular questions related to those, they may already have been answered on previous webinars, and you can have a look in our Technical Education Resource Hub, which sits on the CDI website, and the Q&As will be able to help you with those. I'll put a link in the chat for the Technical Education Resource Hub if you haven't seen it, and I'll also put my contact details as well. But I'm going to stop there, and I'm now going to hand over to Angela Savage from the Department for Education, who is going to be leading the session today.
Thanks so much, Kim. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully my slides will appear in just a second. Here we go. Okay. Right. So I should be able to do this here. So hopefully you can all see the slides. So thank you so much you can see them, brilliant. Thank you so much, Kim, for that introduction and for having me here today. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to take you through some of the latest updates, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about qualifications reform over the past few years and why qualifications are being reformed as well. Because there isn't a huge amount new that I can share today with you, which will become clear as we go through the presentation. So we're going to start by looking at having a recap over why reform was needed. We're going to look at the qualifications that are now in the system, what the future post-16 pathways will look like, and also some resources that you can take away. There are quite a few slides today, but there will be time at the end for questions, and I will try and answer them as much as I can, bearing in mind the fact that we've just finished a consultation, and the responses are being analysed at the moment by our team in detail. So on the future landscape, it's limited what I can actually say. Okay, so let's move on then to the first slide. So reforms to post-16 education qualifications began after a number of successive reviews found that the system was overly complex and didn't serve students or employers well. The Wolf Review of Vocational Education was published in 2011, so this has been going on for quite a few years now, examined vocational education for 14 to 19-year-olds. It found that the content of many qualifications across level 3 and level 2 were not valued by employers, and many courses offered very little value with no route to further education or prospects for meaningful employment. The report on the Independent Panel on Technical Education, which is usually known as the Sainsbury's Review, published in 2016, and Lord Sainsbury's report found that many individuals who successfully completed qualifications at level 3 and level 2 remained poorly equipped to enter skilled work. The Auger Review, which was published in 2019, reviewed post-18 education and funding, and it found that England needed a stronger technical education system below degree level, and that would increase opportunity and support disadvantaged students and address structural skills shortages. And before the reforms began, post-16 qualifications, there were over 12,000 publicly funded qualifications at level 3 and below. So it's a hugely complex system. So the previous government set out to reform the system for post-16 learners, and they set out that A-levels, which are academic qualifications, as you know, and T-levels, technical qualifications, would be the main qualifications of choice for 16 to 19-year-olds. There would additionally be alternative academic qualifications, also called AAQs, in subjects that were less covered by A-levels, or if they were in priority areas. So they were, at the time, were identified as STEM particularly. And also technical occupational entry qualifications, sometimes people refer to them as TOCs, delivering competence against an occupational standard that's not covered by T-levels. At level 2 and below, the students would have clear lines of sight to level 3 qualifications, and apprenticeships, and for some skilled employment at level 2. So for some students as well, the primary aim would be independent living or general employment below level 2. And by the time of the general election in 2024, the reforms were starting to be delivered by the previous government. So there were new qualifications were being introduced, and defunding had started of existing ones as well. So that's kind of where we're up to then. Okay, so just after the election in 2024, the defunding of qualifications proposed by the previous government was paused, and we undertook a review of level 3 qualifications that were set to have their funding removed in 2024 and 2025. The review of qualifications reform aimed to see where we needed to retain qualifications and to consider how long we needed to keep them in place while reformed alternatives were developed, as the current government were concerned about the pace of reforms. So in July 2024, this is the next review we're going on to, the new government commissioned Professor Becky Francis to convene and chair a panel of experts to conduct a review of the curriculum and assessment of all key stages of education. So going all the way from Key Stage 1 right through to Key Stage 5. The curriculum and assessment review is informed by research evidence, data, and input from experts, stakeholders, and the public, including over 7,000 responses to the call for evidence and a range of research and polling. The review's final report was published on the 5th of November 2025, which is obviously towards the end of last year. And the report included recommendations for reform of the curriculum and assessment system, including on refreshing programmes of study for each curriculum subject, raising standards of oracy, reading, writing and maths from the early years into secondary, preparing young people for life and careers in a changing world, and delivering high standards. And in terms of post-16 qualification pathways, the report recognised A-levels and T-levels as strong academic technical routes and recommended the introduction of a revised third pathway at level 3 called V-levels. It emphasised also the importance of reforming provision for those studying at level 2 who are likely to face additional barriers, and recommended the introduction of 2 separate pathways, an occupational pathway and a pathway to level 3. On English and maths, it reaffirmed, in line with current practice, that all learners who do not reach level 2 by the end of Key Stage 4 should continue to build the core knowledge, skills and confidence in English and maths. So that's where we're up to in November 2025. And hopefully that's been kind of a bit of a useful go through of where the reforms were up to. So as Kim mentioned earlier, on October the 20th last year, the government published the Post-16 Education and Skills Strategy White Paper. And it set out a vision for a world-leading skills system. And the key proposals in our area included introducing V-levels that the Curriculum Assessment Review had recommended, strengthening and expanding T-levels, reforming level 2 options, which again was a recommendation, and improving English and maths progress. And the strategy underpins all the changes that we're going to look at later on today as I go through the presentation. Okay, so we're going to start with the new qualifications currently available in the system that were introduced by the previous government. So what are they? The current landscape of vocational and technical qualifications is mixed, with some qualifications providing a very broad range of content within a field or subject area. The varying levels of minimum mandatory content and external assessment also lead to variable quality and a confusing picture for both learners and others when they're trying to understand the knowledge a learner has gained from studying a particular qualification. New qualifications have been available for First Teach from the 1st of August last year in routes and subjects aligned to construction and the built environment, digital, education and early years, engineering and manufacturing, and health and science. And I've done a couple of presentations for the CDI, so thanks to Kim on these qualifications as well as they were introduced. So these qualifications, as I mentioned before, are alternative academic qualifications or AAQs and reformed technical qualifications, which include technical occupational entry qualifications and additional specialist qualifications. So both of those kind of qualifications come under the bracket of reformed technical qualifications. In relation to the quality of these new qualifications, before they're approved for public funding, the Office for Qualifications and Examinations Regulation, which is Ofqual, reviews qualifications to provide feedback to inform funding decisions taken by the Department for Education. And it's a key aspect of ensuring the quality of qualifications improves and learners can be confident in high quality qualifications that will support progression to higher education and into skilled employment. So this slide shows the qualifications available, and you can see here where they sit next to each other. This is actually available as a download on our in our toolkit and on our web page, which we'll be able to share a link of later. So there's quite a few different downloads available that will hopefully help you understand at a glance really where things sit with each other. So you can see on there that the technical qualification side, you've got T-levels, occupational entry qualifications, additional specialist qualifications, and then on the academic side, you've got A-levels and AS levels, and then small alternative academic qualifications. So this is the academic year 2025. And then obviously you've also got alongside that apprenticeships, and then other level 3 qualifications that are listed there. So there's a range of qualifications that are in the system at the moment. Okay, so moving on then and looking more closely at AAQs. So AAQs are qualifications designed mainly to support entry into higher education, and they're typically taken alongside A-levels in strategically important subjects. So that's what the availability is. And they range from 150 to 420 guided learning hours with at least 40% of assessment by examination, and the rest through applied and academic learning, including non-examine assessment like projects as well. And as I mentioned before, these are designed mainly to support entry into higher education. So to receive public funding, AAQs must show clear progression to the higher education sector. And so they must be backed by at least 6 approved institutions. So the institutions send in the letters of support for the qualifications themselves. And around 60% of content is mandatory, with up to 40% optional, allowing students to tailor their choices to their interests as well. And as I mentioned before, approved AAQs that were available from last September include subjects such as human biology, applied science, health and social care, medical science, engineering and computing. And more were approved for September 2026 as well. So moving on to reform technical qualifications, as I mentioned before, these are available as 2 different types. There's technical occupational entry qualifications and additional specialist qualifications. So at level 3, the technical occupational entry qualifications are generally smaller than T-levels. Their size is led by the requirement to deliver competence against an occupational standard. So they are based on how large the occupational standard is. And they aim to support a learner to enter or to progress within a job role, so within an occupation, hence the title of the qualification. We've currently approved a range of technical occupational qualifications, and they range from 187 apologies to 864 guided learning hours. For 16 to 19-year-olds, level 3 reform technical qualifications are only available in non-T-level areas. So T-levels are the large qualification of choice for 16 to 19 learners, and they're available in over 20 subject areas. And as Kim mentioned, there's going to be a presentation for members and in a couple of weeks on T-levels. For adults, reform technical qualifications are also available in T-level areas and can cover any occupational standard. So there's a wider range of qualifications of this type for adults. For level 3, they can be studied after GCSEs and other level 2 qualifications, and they're also available at level 2. Okay, so just a bit more information here about additional specialist qualifications in this area. So level 3 technical occupational additional specialist qualifications are specialist level 3 qualifications for post-16 learners and adults, and they go beyond the contents of the occupational standard. So they allow a learner to develop additional extra knowledge and competencies and specialise within a sector. So they cover and build on knowledge covered by a T-level or other occupational entry qualification. So an example of that would be an additional specialist qualification in something like special educational needs coordinator in early years that would build on the early years education technical occupation entry qualification at level 3 and the T-level in education and early years. So you can see how they would kind of support that qualification and provide specialism. And again, those are available at level 2 as well. So here's some examples of pathways, and these are all available to download on our website as well. And again, I know Kim has these linked in the Technical Education Hub, and that, you know, we can share the links to these too if they're useful. So these are available in health and science, education and early years, construction and the built environment, and digital. And there's some like this that are quite kind of high level, and then others that have got a lot more detail about a study programme. And you can join our mailing list as well, which again we'll share the links to, which will keep you informed about the latest information and guidance and links. So we can share this after the recording, but it's quite a useful, well, hopefully a useful place to get information from. So we send out regular updates using that mailing list directly to the people that have signed up for it. Okay, so we're moving on now to the future post-16 pathways. So as I mentioned earlier, we launched a consultation on Monday, the 20th of October. So this was part of the post-16 skills strategy white paper, asking about V levels and level 2 pathways and the growth of T levels. So this was open for 12 weeks and it closed last month on the 12th of January. And as I mentioned before, and Kim mentioned as well, I presented about this in the end of November, December time last year. So thank you so much to all of you who have actually contributed to this and provided their views on these new pathways and also the growth of T levels. Our team are currently looking in great detail at the responses and analysing them, ready to publish a response in the spring. So the consultation asked for views on the proposed introduction of V levels at level 3, the plan to grow T level provision, and also exploring new subjects, and the creation of 2 new level 2 pathways. The consultation also set out a transition period for the T level foundation year into the further study pathway as well. So there's a huge amount of information. The consultation document is still available and it's really, really useful to have a read. Maybe not all in one go because it's quite large, but there's a huge amount of information there about the plans, obviously. So these reforms aim to simplify and strengthen the qualifications landscape for 16 to 19-year-olds, ensuring it better supports progression into further study and skilled employment. And the consultation will inform key decisions about the design, structure and implementation of these pathways. As I mentioned before, this is what's happening right now. And it will also help determine how best to ensure qualifications are credible for learners, relevant to employers, and supportive of long-term success. The qualifications outside of the consultation process are highlighted in the consultation document. And as I said, it is available for you to read, and we can share a link to that as well. And as I've already mentioned a couple of times, we are currently reviewing and analysing the results from the responses to the consultation. We expect to publish these in the spring. I can't preempt the results of that response in this webinar, but what I am going to do is set out the vision for the end state of the future qualifications landscape. So if you've got specific questions about subjects or size of the new qualifications and so on, then I would recommend signing up to our newsletter, as I've mentioned, because it does share all the latest news. So, you know, you'll be one of the first to know when the outcomes of the consultation are published if you sign up to the list. Okay, so this slide shows the proposed post-16 pathways and how they fit together. So starting with level 2 in the top left, you can see students can choose between 2 routes. The further study pathway, which is a 1-year programme with nationally set content and strong English and Maths for those progressing to level 3. Or the occupational pathway, a 2-year programme based on occupational standards for students aiming for skilled employment. For level 3 across the bottom, options include A-levels as the academic route, T-levels as the main technical route with its 45-day industry placement, and then new V-levels, which is the broad vocational qualification, similar in size to an A-level, that's the proposal, that combine applied learning and practical assessment. So this structure simplifies choice, improves outcomes by offering clear academic, technical and vocational pathways. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each of them shortly. Excuse me. So for more information on V levels, the proposal set out that this will be a new vocational route, allowing learners to study across multiple subject areas, which will facilitate progression to further study. The V level will blend applied learning with practical assessment. Content will be nationally set, linked to employer standards, occupational standards, and that are defined by Skills England in collaboration with employers, which is not the case at the moment for applied general qualifications, for example. Critically, V levels must be designed for students who want to study in a vocational way and explore multiple industry sectors before choosing where to specialise. That way, they can be combined with other V-levels or A-levels to create a broad study programme. Alongside V-levels, the government remains committed to the continuation and success of T-levels. They've demonstrated their value with over 90% of students from every completing cohort achieving their qualification, some extremely strong employment and progression outcomes supported by the industry placement. And we've got a couple examples here of the study programmes of how these could look in study programmes. So student A is interested in pursuing careers in the creative arts or media sector. They also enjoy music, so they study a mixed programme of an A-level in music plus V-levels in craft and design and media broadcast and production. So that's one example of how they could be combined with A-levels. Student B is thinking about the health and fitness sector, but is also considering careers in digital. So is taking V-levels in sport and exercise science, health and care services, and digital. But just to note, I mean, although these are examples in the consultation document, there are more in the consultation document. These subjects are yet to be confirmed. So we ask for views on potential subjects as part of the consultation that are being analysed at the moment. So this isn't to say that these subjects are set in stone, it's just to give you an example. So let's look at the difference between T-levels and V-levels, which is something we've been asked about a lot. The proposals in the consultation are for V-levels to provide broad vocational qualifications, and they're for students who wish to explore a range of sectors without focusing on a single occupation immediately. The proposals are that they will be comparable in size to an A-level. V-levels can also be studied alongside other qualifications and focus on core knowledge and skills linked with occupational standards, enabling progression to higher education, apprenticeships or employment. V-levels offer breadth for students who would like to explore sectors without specialising as well. T-levels, they're aligned to employer-based standards and they have a 45-day industry placement that I've mentioned earlier. And they will be the main technical route for students who know which broad career area they want to pursue and prefer a single large qualification, the equivalent of 3 A-levels. They combine sector-specific core content, whereas the V-levels are broad qualifications with a specialist component that develops competence in an occupation. T-levels are providing positive outcomes with students progressing to further study or direct employment in their chosen industry. And I'm sure you've got lots of examples of those, of students that have gone on to study T-levels that you work with or have worked with in the past as well. So what does V-levels mean for the other level 3 pathways? So we talked about T-levels, but A-levels as well. So A-levels continue to be offered for students who want to pursue that academic pathway and go to university, and they're not in scope of the consultation. So they weren't involved at all in this consultation and continue to be offered. T-levels will continue to grow and will be the main technical offer for students who have a clear idea about the broad career area they want to pursue. And that's because initial data suggests that T-levels that, as I've already said, are aligned with employer-based standards and have the industry placement, are providing really positive outcomes for students, whether that's into further study or employment. So there's some statistics on the slide, and I've got some here as well to share. 71% of T-level students actually agreed that their course prepared them for the workplace. Now that's greater than students on comparable level 3 courses with differences of 10 to 15 percentage points in other surveys. T-level learners are more likely to work or study in a field of their T-level after completion of the learners on comparable courses at level 3, which 71% compared to 61%. Over 2/3 of T-level students who take up apprenticeships go straight into a higher or degree level apprenticeship, and that is far higher than for all level 3 learners, where the vast majority go on to do an apprenticeship at the same or a lower level. So, quite often you would find that a student studying level 3 qualifications would then go and do a level 3 apprenticeship, or sometimes a level 2, depending. And around a third of students who go into employment get jobs with their T-level industry placement provider as well. And there's so many success stories that you can read and watch video as well on the T-level websites and the support area that share this information as well. It's really nice to hear the student stories and hear from employers themselves as well. We have listened to feedback on T-levels and we're working hard to improve their accessibility. Given their strong performance, the government is clear that where someone wishes to study a large qualification in a T-level area, that it should be the T-level. So we're going to move on to level 2 now. So disadvantaged and vulnerable students are overrepresented in post-16 level 2 education, with 25% of students eligible for free school meals and 29% with SEND, compared to 15% of all 19-year-olds. What has been proposed in the new pathways are 2 pathways, one for students who want or are capable of further study, whether that's T-levels, B-levels or A-levels, after additional year at level 2. So sometimes students just need that little bit of extra time. The further study pathway will include a new small qualification, foundation certificates, which will be available in 15 subjects. The occupational pathway will include a new qualification, occupational certificates, which will be based on specific occupational standards, and will enable students to progress into level 2 work in that area. The occupational pathway will be for 2 years, allowing students to remain in education or training until they're 18, and the further study pathway will be 1 year, giving students time to progress to level 3 study. Both pathways will give students the space and time to continue to study English and maths, to secure their GCSE passes in those subjects, and will give time and space also to enrichment, employability and pastoral activities. And we hope that including things like work experience for learners on the occupational pathway will help. And the consultation included consulting on size of both foundation certificates and occupational certificates as well. We will also continue to offer level 1 and entry qualifications as shorter courses for learners, re-engagement and quick upskilling. Level 2 pathway changes will improve students' outcome through clearer choices for students. So each pathway is linked to a primary destination, making the landscape easier to navigate. Study programmes and qualifications for each pathway will be much better designed to prepare students for their primary destination, whether that's higher study or employment. And clear pathways are expected to reduce students churning between different courses at the same level, so moving throughout their post-16 education between different pathways and different qualifications. Ultimately, we expect improved outcomes and better positive progression for students. So that's more young people progressing to and achieving level 3 due to being better prepared, because they've had that extra time, they'll have had the extra space to study for additional qualifications like English and maths, obviously, which is the current practice, but also space and time for enrichment activities, pastoral activities, and study activities as well. Improved employment outcomes and more young people progressing into occupations related to their qualification, and fewer young people dropping out and becoming neat. And some examples here of learner pathways as well at level 2. So Amy needs to continue to study English and maths and is interested in working in the health sector. So goes on to study an occupational certificate in adult care work alongside GCSE English and maths. And then having taken the occupational certificate, she's gone on through the pathway and able to progress into employment as an adult care worker when she completes her course. And Ben has better GCSE grade profile, but he still needs to study English and wants to work in construction and engineering. So he goes on to the further study pathway, taking a foundation certificate in construction and the built environment alongside GCSE English. Having completed age 17, he progresses on to the T level in construction. And as I mentioned earlier, we consulted on the subjects for these qualifications and the proposed groupings for the core content in the recent consultation that closed last month. So these are things that are currently being analysed, the responses to that as well. Okay, so what's happening next? So the government's committed to enable more students to benefit from reform qualifications as soon as possible. So in the consultation, the government asked schools, colleges, representative bodies and awarding bodies views on the best approach for the transition. So that included a rollout of new qualifications phased between 2027 and 2030 to 31, starting with V-levels, foundation and occupational certificates in 2027, with full implementation across all routes by 2030 to 31. A route by route approach that ensures clear progression from level 2 to level 3 and supports structured careers advice for students, higher education and employers. That the sector will receive clear timelines and support for delivery, with the government confirming rollout order and priority subjects, which will obviously come in the spring when we share the outcomes. And finally, as new qualifications are introduced, public funding will be removed from existing ones, so the system will be simplified and improve quality for learners. So by the end of the rollout period, the qualifications in the system will be V-levels, T-levels and A-levels. So the other qualifications that are in the system at the moment won't be there, but they will be removed in a phased way once the qualifications are in place. So they won't be removed before there's an alternative. Okay, so we have this slide as well that might be useful. It just basically goes through policy milestones, a timeline of what's happened when, and with links on it. So I think Kim might share that with you later. And then we also have links on this slide as well, which will take you to some of the things that I've talked about today. And I can share some of the links as well in a moment. So there's obviously the qualifications reform mailing list that I've mentioned a couple of times, that we do try to send out useful information that's useful for careers advisors and professionals, as well as teachers and lecturers and other interested parties. So I will share that link with you, and hopefully Kim can do the same. Thank you so much for listening to me. I know it's been quite a long presentation today, and I'll stop sharing now, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Ange. I have been trying to answer some of the questions, but I'm struggling to keep up, so I'm going to throw some of them your way in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them I have answered. I'm going to try and pick out a few of the key ones that have been asked.
Okay.
And you will have sort of answered some of these in part as the presentation has gone on, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself.
I can't see any of the questions in the chat, by the way, when you're presenting. So
yeah, no,
I do not know what they are.
No,
so
it's all right. Well, that's why I've been trying to answer them and not actually listening to you, Ange. So that's why I do apologise if I'm repeating anything. And will V levels replace technical occupational qualifications at levels 2 and 3? And I was saying, well, no, V levels are level 3 only, but could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So in the end, at level 3, as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, the only qualifications that will be in the system will be V levels, T levels, and A levels. So they won't exist for 16 to 19-year-olds. At level 2, again, there'll be 2 pathways. So that will include the 2 pathways that I've mentioned. So technical occupational qualifications won't be available in those pathways for 16 to 19-year-olds once they're in place. So there will be a transition period and there'll be more information coming out on that. But ultimately, no, they won't.
Okay. And are there any proposals for students who can't access level 2 courses?
Well, at the moment, level 1 and below wasn't included in this consultation. So those qualifications exist now and will continue to exist. So there will be available, yeah, level 1 and below qualifications for students who can't access level 2 and level 3. And we do understand that those qualifications are absolutely needed. So yeah.
And I guess they will be reformed in such a way that they will help enable that progression onto level 2.
Potentially, I mean that at the moment I don't work in that policy area, so I'm not fully aware of all of the ins and outs of how they feed in. But I'm sure there'll be more coming on that at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But they
Okay.
exist at the moment and they'll continue to.
Okay, another question around how has the higher education sector been involved in the consultation, particularly with regards to V levels, and will we see that they will accept V levels, and
Yeah,
what work's been
absolutely.
done
That we've
to help
we've been
that?
engaging with UCAS, with representative bodies, with higher education institutions through the consultation, and are continuing that dialogue. So they absolutely will be accepted. The same as AAQs and technical occupational qualifications, particularly AAQs, they have got UCAS points. They are being accepted by universities. So yes, V levels will be, and we'll continue that working with the higher education sector to ensure that they're really on board and fully aware of them. And I mean, we're going to the UCAS conference, aren't we, later this month, Kim, to talk
Yeah.
to them about the new pathways and so on. But that will continue with the DFE, absolutely.
And I think we are seeing an increase there's been questions around T-level acceptance as well. I think we're seeing
Yeah,
an increase of universities accepting T-levels, particularly in areas where they are more aligned with the T-level.
definitely.
Obviously not as quick as we'd all like,
Yeah,
but more work is being done, and kind
yeah,
of particularly around making universities make it explicit on their
yeah,
website and on UCAS as well, so that
yeah,
it's a straight answer whether it's yes or no.
yeah,
Um, and yeah,
absolutely.
more work being done to kind of encourage them to appreciate and understand, the depth
Yeah,
of a T level and the fact it is an acceptable qualification.
yeah.
Let me just whiz through and say, we'll put in the link for the newsletter
Yes,
as
I will do
well.
that actually.
Um, so then currently there are a number of students who study a BTEC extended diploma in business studies or sports, for example, and the T level is very different to the BTEC and more challenging. Is there any provision for these sorts of students?
Could you say that again? I'm really sorry, Kim.
So they're just saying that the students that maybe would sort of that what want to study, for example, a BTEC in business or
Yeah,
sport,
yeah.
whereas the T level is seen to be a lot more academic and a lot more challenging. So
Okay.
what would be the advice for those sorts of students?
I think that we are, as I mentioned in the presentation, there's a lot of work going on to make T levels more accessible, but the V level will also, it's a vocational qualification. So the I can't say a huge amount today because the responses to the consultation are being analysed, but the proposals are that they will be a vocational qualification that will be set up in that way. So will suit learners who work in a more applied way. So that should address what you're asking.
Yeah. In relation to those pupils who want to access BTEC level 3 qualifications in performing arts at specialist college providers, will these still exist? I'm not sure I
Well, I
understand that, but
can't at the moment. The consultation, as I've said, we're analysing the response of the consultation. So more will come out about subjects and so on and so forth, and when they're going to be implemented. At the moment, the qualifications will stay in place until the new qualifications are on stream. So students can continue studying the qualifications that are in existence now until either V levels, T levels, or A levels are in place
Yeah.
instead
And
of
I
them, if
think,
you like, in the future.
as you say, a lot of this we have to wait for the results of
Yeah,
the consultation, don't we? Because
yes,
there's
we do.
a lot in there, particularly around the subjects and
Yeah,
pathways and so on. So
yeah.
until that's clear, I
I can
appreciate that you're
understand
limited as
people
to,
ask, I completely understand people
yeah,
asking the
absolutely.
questions. But at the moment, because we're analysing the results of the consultation, we're not preempting that. And until
Yeah.
that's published, it's hard for me to say anything about other than what's in the consultation document, really.
Yeah. And just to say that when we do know more, like I say, we do
Yes.
provide these webinars as and when
Yeah.
we've got information, and
Yeah.
we will certainly do a follow-up to
Yes.
this
Yeah, absolutely,
once we have more
definitely.
information. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question around what happens if young people change their minds. So if they start in an occupational pathway and then change their mind and decide they actually want to do further
Yeah.
study, what would happen then?
I think in the proposals, there was a lot of discussion around that when we were doing our stakeholder engagement over the consultation period, because we met, went and spoke to, and heard from lots and lots of different people over that consultation period who asked the same question. And the proposals in the consultation document did say, about the students moving between, because it does happen. So that should that be something that was available to students? So again, it's something that will be in the response, but that was something that was recognised, that that young people don't always know straight away and do move between pathways. So that was something in the consultation document that you could respond to.
Okay. Um, yeah, if the level two occupational pathway is specific to a subject, could they then move on to an A level? Sorry, a V level.
Um, Potentially, again, this is something that, because the occupational pathway is 2 years and is supposed to feed into employment, it's got a different focus to the further study pathway. So I think this is where careers advice is so important for young people to get onto the right pathway at the beginning. And I think having that clarity with the pathways initially, when young people are deciding what they want to do, will help actually.
Hmm. And then sort of linked to that is what if the level two pathway they want is not offered in a T level, but again, that comes back to the fact of we need to wait to see what
We
subjects will
do,
be
because
offered.
part of the consultation asked about growing T levels and new subjects as well. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Questions around some T level, some universities are still requiring a T level alongside, which obviously isn't possible. Yeah, there's a lot of work being done on that. Again,
Yeah.
UCAS sector bodies,
Yeah.
DFE, Gatsby Foundation are doing a lot of work on
Yes.
that. So, for
Yeah.
example, a university that wouldn't accept a T level in engineering for an engineering course. They're saying you
Okay.
need maths alongside it, which they don't. Well, for a
Yeah.
start, it's not possible. And also, there is a lot of maths in the T level
Yeah.
engineering, and a lot of work is being done to kind of encourage universities to rethink that.
Yeah.
And that's around the sort of wider piece on making sure that universities understand what a
Yeah.
T level is. It's not necessarily about saying them that it's an equal qualification or that they think it's lesser. They just sometimes don't fully understand. And that's why you see, I think a lot of universities will say, we'll look at things on a
Yeah.
individual basis,
Yeah.
which is a step in the right direction, but not enough. We want to see more that, they actually publish that they accept them rather than they look at them on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Um, I missed this last bit, and you mentioned structured careers advice. Can you say more about this? I missed that bit, sorry.
I missed that as well. Oh,
Did not.
what in my response just to the question then? I think I think for careers advisors, I mean, I'm not a careers advisor. I was a teacher. in the post-16 area. And I know having very clear pathways that students can go and study will help. From my personal experience, that is. I mean, I don't know what you think, Kim, about that. You know, having the simplified pathways. So you've got the foundation certificate, occupational certificate, so the further study pathway, occupational pathway at level 2. It's very straightforward. And then at level 3, V levels, T levels, A levels, it makes it really clear. And I think that will help careers advisors advise students because there's that clarity there and it's simplified rather than at the moment where there's all kinds of different things that learners
Yeah,
can
no,
go on to study.
I do agree, and I am a careers advisor.
Yes.
And I think what careers advisors want is just to have that clear information so they know
Yeah.
what the pathways are. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
eventually when things settle down and we have the clear pathways,
Yeah.
V levels, T levels, A levels, it'd be so much easier to advise students.
Yeah.
It's really tricky at the minute in that in between bit
Yeah.
where all the reforms going on because,
Yes.
in schools are always planning ahead. Young people
Yeah.
have to plan ahead. Careers advisors are always planning ahead.
Yeah.
And when the information is not necessarily fully there at the minute, that's the tricky bit. But yeah, I
Yeah.
do appreciate that things will definitely be better in the long term.
Yeah. Yes, it
Someone's
is. That's the
asking,
thing. It is
sorry,
a longer term process.
it's
That's the thing. So it is, yeah,
yeah,
it's not going
exactly.
to happen immediately.
And I think once we have this
Mm.
consultation over and done with, there will be clearer
Yeah.
timescales in place as well,
Yeah.
because I know they're sort of saying 2027 at the minute, but
Yeah.
it'll all become a lot clearer and a lot more structured
Yeah.
once this consultation is completed.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, am I right in thinking that a V level would be equivalent to an A level and you could do a mix of V levels and A levels? Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. That's
That's what the consultations set out and proposed. Yes. Yeah. And at the moment as well, again, that the V levels can be combined together or they can be combined, as you've said, in a mixed program with A levels as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And someone's asking, can you just do three V levels? I think
Yeah.
that is in the consultation that that would be
Yeah.
possible. So if a
Yeah.
young person wants to study broad vocational areas, the V
Yeah.
level is that broad vocational area,
Yeah.
to give them an
And that will,
insight into it, but it still gives them the
yes.
UCAS points if they did want to go to uni,
Yeah,
for example.
exactly. And
Yeah.
the V level will be, because the content will be nationally set as well, which at the moment applied general qualifications and vocational technical qualifications don't have nationally set content. So A levels do. And it means that there's such a broad range of what's in the qualification, whereas students, employers, providers will know exactly, wherever they study a V level, that it's the same content. So they'll know exactly what that's, going to be. So that's something that's kind of different and will improve the quality of the qualification as well as the
Yeah.
size. Yeah.
Okay. We've just got a few minutes left, Ange. So there's one question that I'm just going to pick up on because it's been asked a couple of times
Yeah.
about the T-level foundation years. What's happening with those? And
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
there's information in the consultation document, there's detailed information in there about the transition. But essentially that will be replaced in the end by the further study programme. So that will be all of the learning and everything that's happened in that will feed into the further study pathway. So that will then transition into that. Well, it's stands at the moment. It's currently available, obviously, and will continue to be. And then there'll be a transition period where that will then become that. And so it will be a broader programme that will then feed into V levels, T levels, A levels,
yeah.
rather than just into the T level.
I spoke to colleagues recently who've kind of got their own version of it, if you
Yeah.
like. So there will be
Yeah.
something in place that colleges will put in place because
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
it's in their interest to, support
Continue.
students to progress onto the T levels.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to finish the questions there. There are more coming in, and I appreciate we
Yeah.
haven't got through them all, but we've got through quite a lot actually.
Okay.
Just to finish off and to pick up on a couple of things, people are asking if the slides will be sent out. Yes, they will, along with the recording of today's session as well. So you'll have everything, and we will also write up a complete set of all of the Q&A. So if your question wasn't answered, apologies for that, but we will get to them and we will put out full answers to everyone. And as I said at the very start, we do have our Technical Education Resource Hub. Your question may have already been answered in a previous one. So if you want a quick look, you just jump on the hub and have a quick look at previous sessions. If it, for example, if it was a question around T levels, but we will gather up all these questions afterwards. So a lot of information to take in. So I'm sure you will appreciate the slides and the recording to listen back, and also the Q&A afterwards. Just to let you know as well, we have a whole spotlight on technical education throughout the month of February, because obviously next week, as you will all know, is National Apprenticeship Week. And we are running a webinar next week on apprenticeships, further one the following week on T levels, and then one on higher technical qualifications at the end of February. So a whole spotlight on those, giving you the very latest updates as we know them. But yeah, I can't stress enough that, go back and listen to previous sessions, because they've been really, really useful on all of those. And we've got different speakers in from the DFE, from colleges, we've had employers in, and they will be helping us out on these webinars throughout February as well. So please go on the CDI website and sign up to those. They're all free. And again, you will get all the recordings and Q&A afterwards. But yeah, thank you
I,
very much,
I
everyone, for
posted
attending.
I posted our mailing list in the chat as well. So if anyone wants to sign up, that'd be great. But I know that Kim will share it afterwards anyway. But thank
Yeah, I'll
you.
share it afterwards as well. Yeah, thank you
Thank
very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.